Hey everyone! Welcome back to Gundam Build Guide, and this is our 6th deep dive video. So, this time around, it's the Advanced Beam Battle Circuit. A battle circuit boosting any sort of beam weapons, mostly beam guns, but also beam sabers, and beam scythes, and any other beam accessory you happen to have access to. So, this is the first battle circuit in a long while where a large variety of parts are straight up disqualified. Namely, any parts reliant on physical EX skills. If you like to use those parts, I'm sorry, they're not going to cut it this time. Anyway, that being said, if you do have some physical parts that you absolutely love or you just need to use because their stats are so high, yeah, that's cool, go ahead and use them, just don't use their EX skills. Now, I totally did that myself with a few of my builds, but the problem here is just trying to get their EX skills to work just won't happen unless you have a very clever plan to get around the rules of the battle circuit. Now, in this case, I did actually have to make one single build where I did take the extra effort to make a physical rapid shooter happen, but it required an enormous amount of stats to flip the script over like that. And if I'm being honest, I just did it to show off. So by and large, it wasn't worth making the effort or wasting the parts to get the stats that high. Now, the other tricky thing about this battle circuit is that as usual, there are a couple of random bad word tag rounds. Now, this time around, the most important word tags are high mobility, commander, and the absolute worst one is for desert. The for desert tag definitely gave me some huge headaches because it's typically a skill that only shows up on the weakest, junkiest parts, and typically the parts that have it are melee parts. Now, that being said, if you are feeling up to it, you can entirely beat the circuit with melee builds. I myself came up with a couple of fun ones here and there, but by and large, because most of the beam weapons are guns, you're going to want to use a lot of shooters in this battle circuit. Now, as far as the enemies you're facing this time, in a random weird mix-up, the Strike Gundam here is your most dangerous enemy, especially after you pass round 10. It has a ton of beam EX skills, and it's entirely set to lock onto you and just keep on firing. Now, the gun cannon, on the other hand, is a joke. But the problem with the gun cannon is it usually spawns right up in your face, and then that makes it the first thing you have to deal with. The V2 Gundam, on the other hand, is very slow and easy to handle. So as long as you have the right stats, you should have an easy time killing it. But yeah, look out for the Strike trying to deadshot you while the gun cannon has you distracted. That's the biggest problem here. Also, since this is a beam circuit build, you can build several beams entirely around particular rapid shooter EX skill builds. So now, this is something I don't normally do, but I'm going to try it out. Here is a quick rundown of my personal top 5 most useful parts and how powerful they were and how they could therefore singularly carry any build you put them on. And this is the order I used them in, which you should consider to be the order of their usefulness. So the first super useful part I'm going to point out was the composite armor shield. Now, it's one of the weaker beam rapid attack skills, but it gives you 11 shots, and I used it for Overdrive round 9. Next up is the Tall Geese 3 head with altered archer stance. This part is amazingly useful for skill hack rounds. After that, the armed mega cannon shield from the Banshee Norn. This is an amazingly good rapid shooter part, and the skill is just too good to pass up. After that, the high new beam gun. Now, this one only has 4 shots, but it hits so much harder than the others, and you're never going to be facing any more than 4 enemies except in the last round. So if you have this and you can use it, totally worth it. Also, a quick honorable mention right here. Now, I always recommend you guys use the Crossbone Gundam's beam gun, but the part that I chose for number 1 outclassed it so much on this list that I ended up never using it, even though I did feature it in one of my builds. So finally, the most useful new part that single-handedly can help you carry this battle circuit is the Full Armor Gundam's double beam gun. This is a charity part from last week, but oh my god, you guys, it has 11 shots and it hits like a fucking truck. So if you pair this thing with the right stats, this is the most lethal part for this battle circuit. Now, I'll go more in depth on it in the end of this video, but you definitely want to keep this one saved, and you're definitely going to want to see this in action at least one time. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's go down to the round by round breakdown. So round 1. For the first round, I came in with a very safe build. Now, despite the stats, this thing did not hit hard at all, and I ran into some problems using it for that reason. It's your typical beam rapid shooter, but the weakness is that the Wing Katoki's max output beam rifle did not do the damage I was hoping to get out of it. Nickname, Puebly Gundam. Round 2, for Desert 1. So the 4 Desert tag ended up being the worst kneecap that I was given in this battle circuit. Now, in this first round, I managed to pop the tag using a mix of Blue Destiny, H3, and Quattro Revival Winner to pop the tag. And then after that, I had a bunch of missing spots in my build, and I filled those entirely with Sazabi parts. So that basically makes this build a ground type Sazabi. Now, as a result, this thing is super reliable because it uses all the Sazabi's EX skills, and even though this build is technically too weak, it uses the exam system from the Blue Destiny head, and that's actually how it's viable. So, nickname, Desert Destiny Sazabi. Round 3, Skill Hack. So, I kind of love this build. It's essentially mostly Mudrock, but the head is the Vidar for the Alea Vignana, and the Penelope's backpack is on there to finish out the Federation tag, and then it just looks ridiculous, so I love that. Now, it's getting extra offense from the GPO-1 shield, and between all those and its decent base stats, this thing is in great shape to snipe over anything it comes across. Nickname, Dragon Mudrock. Round 4, Advanced Melee. Okay, now this is one of those completely hilarious battle circuit builds that I would never come up with otherwise. So this round here is Advanced Melee mode, and because it's Beam Advanced Melee mode, I ended up building a build with extra beam sabers at the wazoo. So it's got the Nightingale's big fat legs and the O's big fat backpack, and then it also has combat stance equipped to further boost its offense. Nickname, the 8-armed Fatso Gundam. Round 5, Commander Type. So, Commander Type is kind of a rare tag, and it's one of the more unusual tags that this battle circuit has put onto us. It's way more useful than 4 Desert though. It typically shows up on a lot of Char Aznable suits, so that's what I ended up with here. It's totally a Hakushiki Sinandra kit bash, with some various filler Gundam parts in between. Anyway, this thing is mostly depending on the dual beam shredder and the Royal Heart until it can use whole unit to wrap things up. Nickname, Red and Gold Comet. Round 6, Switch Mode 1. So this is what I came up with for Switch Mode 1? Okay, I don't remember this, so I'm a little surprised. Anyway, this is a melee Switch Mode build, and it's really bringing out the Close Combat Sword EX skills. Deadly Circle is its Rapid Refresh melee EX attack, and then with Max Output and Beam Talfa, those are your backups for killing guys. Also, if you have any parts from the Estrella Type F from last week, that is so useful because its melee defense is so high. Nickname, Deadly Estrella FU. Round 7, Advanced Range. Okay, so this is one of the funner builds I came up with. Now, it's pretty much all my leftover Tallgeese 3 parts, but not the head because I was saving that. So, add in all the Virtue Gundam parts I had, and yeah, this is the Tierra Tallgeese. Nickname, Tierra Tallgeese. Round 8, High Mobility. Okay, kind of a weird build here. Some more Blue Destiny parts, ton of Code 5 parts, and we ended up with the Sword type Gundam that cruises around, and its main deal is to blast off EX skills everywhere. That being said, since this was High Mobility mode, I really do think with this build I can actually feel the improved mobility, since it was able to run circles around its enemy. Nickname, Code Transient Destiny Gundam. Round 9, Overdrive 1. So, over the past couple of battle circuits, I've eventually figured out that in Overdrive mode, you need to use a rapid shooter build. You need to hit hard, and you need to hit as many times as possible. So this here is a completely goofy build, and honestly, the only thing that got this job done here is the fact that I used the composite armor shield. That entirely carried this build, and I had to use it here, and that meant that I wouldn't have it after this, but it carried this build, and I made it work. Nickname, Lunar Lander with composite armor. Round 10, Advanced Skill Mode. So, since the EX skills were boosted here, I went completely off-brand and got away with using the Zeta Gundam's arm grenades and making a physical rapid shooter. I mean, holy crap, those arm grenades are just so freaking useful, and that being said, I did have Meteor Hopper here to boost them up in case they were too weak, and also the Nightingale's backpack was in here as a complete backup in case anything went wrong with this build. As usual, lap 10 ended up being a little bit tricky. Nickname, Gold Knight Gundam. Round 11, for Dessert 2. Oh man, so this was completely my worst round in this battle circuit. And it sucks because it was round 11 and I maybe had some issues getting back in the flow after a week. So the 4 Desert Tag basically wanted me to make an Ifrit X Divider kit bash. But the problem with that is none of those parts are really great or have the offensive power I need. I also ended up using Mikazuki to get the 4 Desert Tag, but in retrospect, this build would have been better if I had used Full Frontal or Norse Packard to boost the Xeon Tag. Because I had the Xeon Tag because of all the Ifrit parts. Anyway, so this ended up being another melee EX spammer, but the barrier tackle was really undependable this time, so I completely relied here on the Sinanji's B-Max and the Riser Sword to survive. Nickname, Ifrit X Divider. Round 12, Skill Hack 2. Okay, so for Skill Hack 2, as usual, I built a build around the Tall Geese 3's head. Same thing I did last week, same thing I did this week. But I also included the Z-Beam here as an emergency stunning attack. Lastly, I used the Extreme Shield here, which does have health and shooting boost. But I ended up not using it at all except for a taunt at the end because I was trying to show off, so... Haha, rock and roll. Nickname, Hard Rock Tall Geese. Round 13, Advanced Melee. So, yeah, another melee build. Here, I'm trying to set up the Hypermnopsy Chohokin, and I managed to get off close combat, which was also very helpful in this build. Now, the main thing here is just setting up and connecting the Chohokin into the V2, and otherwise this build has to do a lot of dancing to take down the Strike. Now, this is one of the first rounds where I really realized that the Strike Gundam was becoming a deadly problem. Nickname, Bastard Vidar Lion. Round 14, Commander Word Tag. So, randomly on this round, I just straight up played my hand with the new Xeon Gundam. Now, I didn't use the backpack because I was saving that, and I had already used the torso in round 12, but otherwise, this build is the new Xeon Gundam. Now, I was trying to make the Xeonic Sword bowgun work, but it just didn't do me the right business, so I switched over to using the Axis attack. Now, I did have high hopes for this attack, but because it was so OP, it completely worked. It nearly killed all of the enemies in the second round, so that made them easy pickings. Nickname here, it's the new Xeon Gundam. It's not original. Round 15, Switch Mode 2. Okay, so if you've been watching my channel, this is a build I've used very many times through Switch Mode, so welcome it back, it's back again. Now, that being said, this is a huge fucking suit, and it needs all its mobility to survive. And this week, that ended up being a completely huge problem because the map is very, very tight, and there are buildings in the way. So the other problem with this build, it's a double funnel shooter, and it has a really hard time trying to find a safe second to launch off the funnels. Anyway, if you can get this thing moving and you can keep it alive, it will win this round. Nickname, Switch Mode Full Armor High Note. Round 16, Advanced Range. Okay, so in this round, I built the Gundam Versago chest break. I never used it before, but I like the stats, I like the skills. And then just to boost it even more, I put some Amuro Ray parts on here, like the high new head and the altered Gundam beam rifle. And this thing worked out like a beast. The Crimson Stinger though on the beam javelin was a mistake in the build. This suit is a complete shooter and it has no melee power whatsoever. So I ended up just surviving and not using those parts. Nickname, Amuro Ray Versago Custom. Round 17, High Mobility 2. So this is another rapid shooter build, and this one is entirely driven around the intense attack power here. Now the Armed Armor DE shield, that's really the only EX skill you need. That being said, I pushed this one so hard that I managed to also get off high firepower and Gundam type, and my recent acquisition of the Full Armor Unicorn Torso from New Year's lets me use the Gundam type boost to boost my shooting even further. Nickname, Full Armor Unicorn Quebly. Round 18, Overdrive 2. So yeah, my last couple of builds here are pretty much all rapid shooters. So after using up the Banshee Norn shield, this one now uses the High Nu shield. Now the High Nu shield only has 4 shots in it, so you need to be very careful with them, but each one of those shots is deadly. Now in my initial run, I actually killed every single thing on the stage with the High Nu shield in 15 seconds. But I had to redo this with a slower speed, and I missed one of my shots, and then I had to use the Armed Armor, which despite being so freaking cool, added 10 seconds to my time because it has to play a cutscene. Nickname, New Wing Banshee. Round 19, Advanced Skill Mode. Alright, so this is a hard shooter build. Despite the fact we were doing Advanced Skill Round, so that, in retrospect, I realized that was somewhat of a bad move on my part. Now, I was hoping that with the high shot attack, the Caldus multi-launcher would have been way more useful, but it completely failed me. Either way, the big things here were the full armor attack and the MPE rush for some executions. This one just barely squeaked by. Nickname, Full Armor Unizeta. And finally, we come to round 20, which I did this week in 23 seconds. I have never finished a final round of the battle circuit in 23 seconds. This explanation is going to take me longer than 23 seconds. So, obviously, I used my absolutely best build here, which was mostly Wing Gundam parts, except the new Katoki head and the Unicorn arms, because those are my main build arms, and I've been working on them since I started the game. Now, as I mentioned in previous weeks, the arms on the Full Armor Gundam looked like they would be absolutely perfect for this battle circuit. So in this final build, I decided to put my money where my mouth is, and holy shit did that ever work out. Now by red subparting those Full Armor Gundam arms into this build, that gave me a brutal shot attack of 42,000, and with that Full Armor Gundam gun, I was able to literally one-shot everything I came across in 23 seconds. So god damn. Personal all-time record for the final round thanks to this thing. Nickname, Wing Zero with the Full Armor Double Beam Gun. Alright you guys, so that's the Beam Battle Circuit. Now look out for those 4 desert rounds, and look out for that Strike Gundam, but this is another pretty simple battle circuit, and I really do believe you guys can handle this one. Stay subscribed for my channel for some more strategy and some more insights if you want to keep doing these battle circuits. Alright, thanks you guys. Please subscribe. I'm 3 people away from 500 people. Ah! Okay, MB out. Later.